Look, 2 bikes. And you know what the collective noun for 2 bikes is, don't you? It's called a race. But I can't race them on my own. I need a second set of hands. So I'd like to introduce you to the younger, more successful, but hopefully slower version of me. It's my brother Ant.
Hello.
Sarcastic applause.
Yeah, I'll take a little bow and everything.
So Ants is here today to help us do a little bit of drag racing and some head-to-head work on a race that kind of doesn't make sense on paper. That Triumph, how many horsepower?
165.
And so I've got 162 on this, so horsepower is really similar. How much does yours weigh?
Just over 300 kilos with a fuel tank of fuel.
Yeah,
That is heavy.
60 kilos heavier than this. That's like riding a Diavel with a pillion. And while we're finishing our little bit of top trumps, I've got 123 newton meters of torque. What have you got?
I've got 221 newton meters of torque.
It's ridiculous.
I could probably pull a house down with it.
It is, yeah. It's a 2.5 litre 3-cylinder motorcycle. I mean, this is a 1200 plus cc V-twin. That should be massive, but today it pales into insignificance compared to the monster that is the Rocket's engine. So today we have got a runway that runs just around to a mile. It's slightly downhill, but it's smooth. We have got 2 people that weigh pretty much the same and can, annoyingly for me, launch a bike pretty much as good as each other. So we're going to take both of these bikes, hit the runway and see if we can destroy clutches, rear tyres and work out which one's actually fastest in a straight line. Despite the fact that this one weighs 60 kilos more and has 100 newton meters more torque, there's so little in it. Although the numbers are wildly different, actually the reaction on the straight, whoever gets the cleanest start nudges. The Ducatis definitely seems to have the edge off the line. It's so even. We're gonna have to swap bikes in a minute and try again. We'll do one more like this though. So we've done a few runs. I was riding the Rocket, Ant was on the Diavel. He beat me, so I'm sulking. And like any true big brother, I've kicked him off the faster bike. Made him ride the Rocket. And I'm going to see if I can get some victories on the Diavel. They are completely different. Even though they're both roadsters, they're not the same bike by a mile. Amazing how close they are. Yeah. No wonder the Triumph was getting left behind. This just seems to pull that little bit harder. Hey, get on your own side. So, yeah, the Ducati definitely has the edge on speed. It feels a completely different sensation. It feels more like a normal bike, the way you get that build of power and it keeps screaming. That feels like you've been hit by a planet. It just absolutely roars away with you. On the way back there, we did a little, both sort of mid-range RPM, second gear, just a quick snap of the throttle and a roll on. And the jump of that Rocket, the minute you open the gas, it left this standing still. Look, it felt like I was in 6th gear, and then that just went roar. So yeah, that thing, if you're in a motorway roll-on race, I reckon the Rocket would smoke this. But for an out-and-out drag race, the Diavel definitely has the edge. But we better do it again just to check. So we've pasted these bikes up and down the runways, all in the name of science. He cheated.
No,
Twice.
only a little bit.
Jump start twice.
I couldn't hear the jump starter at the
Don't
starter.
start with the excuses. Ever since, this is just because you want mum to like you more. I know
Yep.
this. It's been a hard 35 years. I've lost track now. You upset me. We hit the runway. We've done a ton of different launches, ton of different starts. What was really surprising was how similar the two were. Which one did you find easiest to get off the line and why?
This was easiest to get off the line. Didn't try to wheelie. That thing, if you gave it too much gas, it was up in the air. This just seemed so stable. I had trouble feeding it enough gears. I think that was the bigger issue I had with this one.
Yeah, it definitely runs out of revs compared to this. You're getting shocked by the rev limiter every time on that.
Yeah, definitely.
At the other end of the straight, I found that despite being the bigger, heavier bike, the Triumph was actually easier to stop on the brakes. You said the same thing. This feels a little bit more, I don't know, skitty on the brakes.
Yeah. There was one where I went right to the line before I hit the brakes and I didn't think I was going to stop. There was a lot of smoke.
I was giggling into my helmet that one.
But yeah, that felt quite vague almost with the brakes, whereas this just seemed to be very planted.
I think where that's so heavy, it does push the tyre into the ground a little
Yeah.
bit better. But there's no denying the fact that even when you got the perfect launch on the Triumph and it matched the Ducati off the line, once you were going on the half-mile course we had set out, the Ducati just pulled and pulled and pulled. Whatever I did on the Triumph, I just struggled to hold you to the end. And this always had the run from a standing start. Then we flipped it round and we thought, right, let's do some kind of real, I'm not going to say real world testing because we're riding flat out up and down a runway. There's nothing real about that. But we thought we'd do some kind of, comparable roll-ons from 50 mile an hour. So we did 2nd gear, 3rd gear and 6th gear from 50 mile an hour. And every time the Triumph had it. That torque from that engine, it's an absolute monster of a thing. And it takes you up till 90, 100 mile an hour before the Ducati can get back past it.
But it does get back past.
Eventually.
Once it's going, there's no beating that thing.
So in the name of the scientific question that no one asked, if you want to go drag racing, a Diavel is slightly quicker. If you want to feel like you've been hit by a planet, go and try a Triumph Rocket 3. Acid test. If you could take one of these home right now, what are you going to take and why?
I am going to take the Diavel.
Yeah?
The power for me, I mean, I ride to work on a CB500, so that's like a rocket ship.
For me, I would probably take the Rocket, I have to say, just on novelty grounds. Because I've done a lot of miles on Diavels. I've ridden around the Nürburgring on one. In fact, I've raced you around the Nürburgring on one. I really like the Diavel and I kind of know I like it. The Rocket, in the time we've had playing on the runway today, it's kind of piqued my interest. It's a very bizarre sensation to ride. The way it makes its power, the way it pulls away. You said earlier, it's more like a train than a bike.
It definitely hits you like a train.
It's not the same as riding anything else I've ridden, so I'm keen to put some miles in on the Rocket and actually find out what it's about on normal roads. I'll make my call once I've played on both of them. But for now, drag racing over. Tell us in the comments what you want to see us drag racing next. We did the H2R, so pick something else, pick something interesting, and we'll come and we'll ride them flat out and find out which is fastest.
But I win, so cheers, bro.